mentioned, I started my career as a jazz musician. And when I was studying music, I had a teacher that would force me to remove strings from my guitar. Sometimes I'd have to remove 3, which is half of the strings from the instrument. So you would think with less resources, you'd probably be less creative. Totally the opposite happened. When I had fewer strings on the guitar, I was actually able to break free from traditional patterns. It forced me to look at the work in a different way. And I was able to solve musical problems in a completely fresh approach. So again, getting scrappy, having fewer resources, sometimes can be a real driver of progress. As I was building my company, I got to a point and I wanted to share the wealth with our team. We had a great quarter. The problem is I added up the numbers, and all I could afford to give was about $200 a person. Not a very exciting bonus. So I had to get scrappy. I had fewer resources, I had to get scrappy. Here's what I did. It was a Thursday, I unplugged the servers, turned off the phone system, and said, guys, I'm kidnapping the company. I took everybody to the closest Best Buy, gave each person a $200 gift card, and said, you have to spend this right now. So pandemonium erupts. People are racing up and down the aisles. Oh, did you get the camera? Did you get the Xbox? Those poor cashiers at Best Buy, we had like 300 people just attacking them. But the point is this. If I gave everyone that bonus, it would have been forgotten 10 minutes later. But 18 months later, people were still talking about the day that we kidnapped the company. We got scrappy. Another fun example of this, I was thinking one day about how often greatness is achieved in the face of adversity. You know, what would Austin Powers be without Dr. Evil? Or you have great sports rivalries or political rivalries. At our company, by 2004, 5 years in, we were the dominant player in our field. We were crushing our competitors. And we really didn't have some evil arch enemy to gun against, to push us, to fight the hard fight. So since we didn't have a giant competitor, I made one up. I want to introduce you to our fake, fictitious, made-up nemesis, the Slither Corporation. So I had this big company meeting and I said to everyone, listen, there's a competitor out there. They're bigger than us. They're faster than us. They're more technically savvy. They're better financed. And everyone's jaws dropped. They thought we were the big guys in town. So this made-up competitor became part of our culture. It wasn't done to make us feel good. It was done to drive urgency, to get away from complacency. Here's what we did. We really had fun with it. Our spies would intercept memos from the Slither Corporation. We'd get Wall Street Journal clippings of their earnings report to drive us on. We sometimes dressed up in costumes that were the antithesis of our culture. Anyway, what happened though is it also drove creativity and free thinking. So for example, before Slither, I would ask a question like, hey, how can we shorten our production time? People would clam up. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They don't want to piss somebody off. But so then we changed the question. We said, our spies at Slither just got a report. Slither just shaved 2 days out of their cycle time. How do you think they did it? Now, the whiteboards were filled with ideas because no one had any fear. No one was afraid what they were going to say. And so it really drove not only urgency, but it drove our creative thinking. I know each of us have our own real competitors, but I would like to challenge you. Think about what would the ideal competitor be if they were gunning right after you. If Mark Zuckerberg, Warren Buffett, and Bill Gates put $1 billion together, opened up shop just down the street, and had your picture on their target, what would they do differently? How would they approach the work? They're never going to have a down quarter. It's a really fun exercise to create your ideal competitor and then benchmark yourself against that rather than the actual folks in the real world. One of my favorite entrepreneurs. This guy's named Tom Lix, L-I-X. So Tom's had a bit of a checkered past. He's had more failures than successes. So anyway, he raises some money, starts a company, goes for it, and it totally craters. This guy blows it. He loses everything. All his investors lost every penny. Tom is broke. He's about to lose his house. What would most people do in this scenario? Run for the hills of safety. Go take some soulless desk job for the rest of their lives. Not Tom. Tom thinks at this moment, at his lowest point, he says, I'm going to start a whiskey company. Apparently he loves whiskey. Who doesn't, I guess, but Tom really loves whiskey. Actually, he was trained in the military. He was in the military at a young age. An officer showed him how to make hooch. So now he likes to say he's government trained in the field. So here's what Tom does. He gets into the research and realizes that to make a good whiskey takes a decade or more. Tom didn't have a decade. Tom is about to lose his house. So he goes for this 10x, push the boundaries approach. He said, wait a minute. Instead of putting the whiskey in the barrels to age, what if I put the barrels in the whiskey? So here's what he does. He takes these giant stainless steel tanks, and then he chops up uniform pieces of charred oak wood barrel, puts them in the tank with the liquid, and then he applies pressure. Turns out that this wood is very porous, like a sponge. So when you apply pressure, it soaks up the liquid, and when you release the pressure, the liquid flows back out and it picks up the flavor profile of the wood. So what he does is he applies pressure, releases it, applies it, releases it. So instead of making a good whiskey in a decade or more, Tom is making whiskey in a week. So you might say, all right, he's making it in a week. He's probably going to hide that fact. He's going to call it like Kentucky bourbon and blend in on the shelf. Not Tom. He pushes the boundaries. Tom's product is Cleveland whiskey. It's his hometown. Right on the label, radically different. So he's making it in a week. He's making it in Cleveland. It's got to be the discount product. Not Tom. This product sells for a 30% premium to the national brand. And here's what's going on. Even in a week, Tom can't make this stuff fast enough to keep up with demand, running 3 shifts a day. It's the hottest whiskey product out there. It's won all these blind taste tests. Tom is back on his feet. He's killing it. And he did this because he had the guts, the fortitude, the grit, the determination, the passion to push the boundaries.